Hey, next on the T Nation, thank you so much for coming back and tuning in to part 2 of this week's show featuring my conversations with Jenn Whaley and Mitch Lyons. Jenn Whaley is just a wonderful human being. What energy, what great enthusiasm for the game of golf and for what she does. She is currently the Chief of Staff and the Senior Business Manager at Topgolf and Callaway Brands. You're going to hear an awful lot about that and the programs that she works with to help bring beginners into our game and to keep them as a part of our game. Her positivity just comes flowing out, and you're going to hear that through the speakers. She is a wonderful individual. Very excited to have her as a part of this week's show. And then, like I say, we're going to round it out with a conversation with former Falcons and Steelers tight end Mitch Lyons, a guy who just absolutely put his body on the line, and that flowed out, and people saw that in the video when he was in college at Michigan State and then with the Falcons. That's how he landed with the Steelers. Really impressed the coaches and Bill Cowher, so you can hear a lot of great stories with him as well. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next hour or so. Before we get started, I want to remind you about our friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the unofficial underwear of the PGA, Ryder Cup, and President's Cup teams, and are sold in over 3,000 golf pro shops and golf specialty retailers nationwide. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, they are David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Go to 2under.com to check out the bundle specials that offer substantial discounts for being a Next on the Tee listener. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under, performance in your pants.
Every January, PGA Tour Superstore pros meet every manufacturer, learn about the latest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together hit over 100,000 balls. All so they can get you the perfect fit.
All right, now making her Next on the Tee debut with me is Jenn Whaley. If her last name sounds familiar, that's because she's the daughter of Susie and Bill Whaley. Susie has been a wonderful friend of the show for many years. Let me give you some background on Jenn. As a junior player in high school, she lettered all 4 years in golf and 2 years in field hockey. She was a 4-year all-conference selection in golf and a 4-year all-state and all-New England selection as well. She played her college golf at Quinnipiac up in Hamden, Connecticut, where she was the team captain for 3 seasons. She led the team in birdies for multiple seasons. In fact, she's number 1 in career birdies and rounds played in school history. And she led them to the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference Championship during her senior season. She was a 3-time MAAC All-Academic Team honoree. After graduating, she became a financial consultant and a strategic advisor for CVS and Aetna. She went back to school and earned her master's degree from MIT. She is now Chief of Staff and Senior Business Manager for Topgolf and Callaway Brands, and I couldn't be more excited that I get to have her with me this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Jenn, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much for having me. Wow, that intro made me sound like such a good golfer. I'm used to being compared to my parents and my sister, who are all professionals. That was the best intro of all time. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Jenn, I want to start by going back to your very young years because I read you actually started playing the game at age 3. Is that right?
That's right. I always say golf was not an option in my household. As you mentioned, both my parents are in the game, in the industry. They both played professionally, became coaches, and then worked in the industry. And so they were teaching on the range all weekend, every weekend. And so our option was come to the range with them or stay at home. And stay at home wasn't a real option. So we were at the range, my sister and I, every single weekend, our whole lives, starting at age 3.
So to your point, golf is all around you, even with your sister Kelly, who went on to play her college golf at North Carolina like your mom did. Did you take up playing the game because you really enjoyed it or because your little sister got into it and you certainly weren't going to let her beat you at anything?
Oh, you got me. It was my sister, 100%. We always say when I first started, my parents honestly really just wanted me to like the game. They love the game, of course, so much. It's a huge part of their life and their love story and our family and how we communicate with each other and have fun together. And so really, they didn't have any goals for us in terms of playing competitively. But I always say I was the guinea pig, right? So I was the first. I'm the oldest in my family. And then my sister comes along and she's pretty good. And they're like, we should throw these girls in some tournaments and see how they do. And I did not enjoy it, to be blunt. I because of my last name, was put in a group of the absolute best golfers that Connecticut had to offer. And I think I shot about a 65 for 9 holes in my first tournament at age 9, and decided to quit for a couple of years. And then I got to see my sister winning. She got an ice cream every time she won. And, that sort of convinced me to come back. She was younger than me and I wanted to get out there and have fun, and was enjoying watching her. And so I really credit her for getting me back into competitive golf, which then led to me playing in college as well.
So how often when you or Kelly were struggling with your swings, what I'm picturing is you guys around the dinner table, you're talking to mom and dad, maybe you've had a swing problem or something you're challenged with, and all of a sudden someone picks up a spoon, a butter knife, and says, "Come here, let me see. What are you doing? You hold it like this, grip it like that." Is that what it was like around the table?
It's like you were there constantly. I think we would try really hard to have conversations that didn't center around golf. Of course, my parents always asked about our day in school, what we were learning, what we were interested in, but 9 times out of 10, we were going to talk about golf, whether it was on the TV or a swing tip or something new my mom had learned that she wanted to teach my dad, or vice versa. So whether it was a swing tip to my sister and I or not, constantly knives being used. Here's how you hold your grip. Here's how you take it back. The follow through, everything about it. It was just golf 24/7.
So, like I mentioned in your intro, you were also really good at field hockey. Was that ever a possibility? Were you ever thinking about going that route in college, or was it golf always going to be the thing?
I love field hockey, and I love that you brought that up. So my mom is a real advocate for multi-sport children. I think there's a lot of people out there who think it makes sense to specialize your kid right away if you want them to play college sports. My mom is adamant that to build your athleticism, you need to learn how to play lots of different sports, and that will only help you in your golf game in the future. So she always had us in a ton of different sports. Like I mentioned already, I'm the oldest. I was the guinea pig, so I got to try everything under the sun. And then my mom realized what she liked and didn't like going to, which, hurt my sister a bit. My sister always wanted to horseback ride. But eventually I realized that I really did enjoy field hockey. And there is that connection to golf. While it's a little bit of a different swing because you're flipping your hands over quick to keep the ball on the ground, there is that similar movement. So I was able to excel quickly in that sport. I absolutely loved it. But, by my junior year, when I couldn't get the golf ball in the air, my mom said, "We're done. Your field hockey swing is bleeding into golf. We're not doing this anymore." And at that point, I had committed to play for Quinnipiac going into my senior year. So that was really my focus. So I ended up stopping field hockey and focusing on my golf game and getting my swing ready to play D1 golf. I miss it, though. I absolutely loved it. I loved watching the team at Quinnipiac. It's such a fun sport. But again, any sport you can do, I really do think will end up helping your golf game.
Jen, I want to talk about your style of play because, like I mentioned in your intro, you're one of the all-time leaders in the number of birdies made in Quinnipiac school history, which suggests to me an aggressive style of play. Were you Arnold Palmer-esque, going for broke all the time, or just remarkably consistent hitting fairways and greens?
Oh, man, don't I wish. I was a big birdie to triple bogey type of player. Not a lot of consistency on the scorecard. Again, my mom always says, there's no picture behind a scorecard. It's just a number. So however you get in the hole is how you're going to do it that day. But I was pretty aggressive. I think one thing that always was a benefit to my game is that I'm definitely a longer player. My driver was always my favorite club in the bag. I have a lot of distance. My sister and I were taller, we're bigger. So we were able to hit it further than a lot of our competitors, which oftentimes did help us in terms of, par fives, able to get those birdies back. But then you get to a par 3 or within 100 yards, and I often fell apart. My short game left much to be desired still to this day. So definitely an aggressive player, loved going for it as much as I could, just to take advantage of my benefit in the game as compared to my competitors.
You captained the team to the conference championship your senior year. What was it like when you guys clinched that title?
Oh, it was the best. Playing at Quinnipiac was one of my all-time favorite memories in golf. Absolutely. Wouldn't change it for the world. I had an incredible coach, John O'Connor, there. And when I came in, I was actually one of the first recruits to the team. To that point, it was a newer team to the school and had really leaned on walk-ons. But I was one of the first recruits my freshman year. And it was a ton of fun. We always joke that team couldn't even come close to making the team today, but we had a lot of fun. But it was just the coolest experience to go from that year where, I was consistently one of the better players on the team to my senior year where I was fighting for that 5th spot. I barely got it for my senior conference championship, but I needed to be there. I really got to see that team through from my freshman to senior year. Like you mentioned, my coach put me in as captain my sophomore year, so I helped grow the team and recruit, build the program, build the culture of excellence. And by my senior year, we ended up winning the conference championship, which was an incredible moment, but it really was a great culmination of my 4 years. And now, especially that we're the first team to win that conference championship, because from my year on, the team's only gotten so much better. They're incredible students too. We always say, I don't know between the GPA or the scores, which is better for the team now, but it's really cool to say I was a part of that program in that first win.
So, Jenn, let's fast forward to what you're doing now. Talk about how you caught on with Topgolf and Callaway brands.
Absolutely. So I was that classic rebellious, I'm, not going to work in golf like my parents. I'm going to do something different. That 22-year-old, I know what I'm doing and my parents don't. And so after college, also was a little burnout, to be honest, after playing for so many years and really wanted to try something new. So ended up working, as you mentioned, for Aetna and CVS for a bunch of years. And throughout that time, learned a ton of skills, a lot of functional assets that were going to help me in my future career, but never quite felt the passion behind the industry that I wanted to feel. And that I got to witness my parents every day of their lives love what they do and was always looking for that. And so used a business school at MIT Sloan as a way to pivot back into the sports world and work on the business side of sports, which was going to be a fun, interesting new way to come at sports as a player. And to be completely honest, it wasn't necessarily only golf for me. I really just wanted to get into the sports space. Women's sports is my all-time passion. I want to get more women into sports. I think it drives so much confidence and just lifelong skills. And in order to be a leader one day, I think sports give you what you need to get there. And luckily enough, got a chance to chat with a bunch of people at Topgolf Callaway brands, including the CEO himself, understand the vision of the company and how Callaway's really going beyond just traditional golf, right? We have Top Tracer, Travis Matthews, OGIO, Odyssey, all these different brands that come to golf and look at golf in a slightly different way, coming together to create this vision of the modern golfer. And again, for me, women's sports, beginners, how do we make golf more accessible? That's where my passion point lies. So that's what really excited me and brought me to Topgolf Callaway brands.
So talk about your role and the things that you're doing there now.
Absolutely. So my role, I'm chief of staff and senior business manager to our digital team. So it's funny. I think most people think of golf and potentially, first think, okay, I'm going to buy my golf clubs or golf balls or golf equipment from my local club, from, one of the big retailers. But there's this whole world of buying direct from the manufacturer, buying from CallawayGolf.com, buying from Callaway Pre-Owned, Odyssey.com, OGIO, et cetera. Then that's the team I work on. So we get to work and talk to the customers directly every single day. And through this world and through that work, we started to realize that there was this giant market opportunity to capture the beginner golfer. There wasn't anyone really tackling that space from the manufacturer perspective, because at the end of the day, CallawayGolf.com is really serving the traditional golfer. We're going to tell you about our newest launch, all the technology that's going into the build. It's, the price point is going to be higher than maybe a beginner is comfortable with. And a lot of the language we use, they might not quite get quite yet, right? So there's that nervousness, intimidation that comes with going to a manufacturer directly that we wanted to tackle ourselves. And so it's been really great. In the past couple of weeks, we just launched Topgolf Shop, which is our new e-commerce site. You can find it at topgolf.shop. And really our goal was, like I said, to talk to that beginner golfer in a way that they feel comfortable and they understand, and breaks down those barriers to get into golf. And what's really great about it is we've basically been able to marry Callaway's expertise in golf equipment with Topgolf's commitment to making the game more fun for beginners. So by that, it's a user-friendly site. We've curated the offering to be exactly what the customer and the beginner needs to get out on the golf course. So by that, we mean golf clubs, golf balls, gloves, and tees. What are the 4 main categories? Those are what you need to get out on the course for the first time. And it's been a really fun, exciting, different opportunity for us to try and talk to the beginner golfer and get them into the sport in a way that's exciting to them.
So let's take that a step further, because one of the things that I love about what you're doing, and you mentioned language a moment ago, golf has become such a technical game over the last several years. TrackMan, launch monitor, simulators, data everywhere, smash factor, attack angles, ball speed, all that stuff. Topgolf Shop is decidedly not that, which is perfect for beginners. Talk about keeping the jargon out of it when you introduce beginning players to the game.
Absolutely. And that's one of the best parts with us having this partnership with Topgolf as Callaway, the exclusive golf provider, is they have that voice. They've got it down. We were able to work with their team to really learn how are we going to talk to this customer in a way that they understand, right? Taking that technology of it out, including some of the benefits, of course. And there's some things that I think a beginner golfer would show their friend or their coach. Hey, does this look like a good set? And that person's going to immediately look at the specs, what clubs are included, right? Some of those things we just talked about, shaft. But the beginner golfer doesn't know any of that. So, one of the things we did on the site was we built a quiz, 6 questions, super easy, understandable. Are you left-handed or right-handed? Are you looking for a game that can grow with you or just something to get out on the course for the first time? All these different really light questions that anyone could understand. And it spits out, hey, here's the set we think is for you. Now, if you want to see other sets, we have a couple others that have, a variety of price range and number of clubs in the bag, depending on that customer, what they're really looking for. But it's such a fun and different way to talk to the customer that we think is exciting. It's engaging. Another thing that we've done a lot of research with this group, beginners really care about price and reviews and an easy way to compare products, right? So how do we make it clear what's the difference between our sets? What are the reviews? What are other beginners saying? What other beginner content can we give you so you understand why do I even need a driver and two woods and 4 irons and a putter, right? And so it's been really fun to understand and think about golf in a different way than maybe we're used to as experienced golfers working for Callaway.
Jenn, switching gears just slightly, and I say all the time about the game of golf, it takes about 10 years just to get bad at playing golf. The National Golf Foundation says only 1 in 4 golfers continue to play long term. Boy, that is something that we've got to make better. How can we fix that?
Absolutely. I'll answer in 2 ways. So one, that was a huge stat for why we built this site. And we did an extra research study, where we found, why is this happening? Why are 3 out of 4 people leaving the game that have just started and just picked up on course? And we really found that a big part of this is the process of buying clubs, right? So we found 0% found it very easy, and 50% found it not easy at all to understand what clubs do I need and what resources do I need. So I think that's step one. Let's get beginners the equipment they need, and it be quality and effective equipment that will actually make them fall in love with the game, as opposed to maybe, my partner or my friend's hand-me-downs that actually aren't built for me. And I'm going to be terrible, maybe even more so, right, than I would have been because it's not the clubs that are built for me. So I think that's one, get them the right equipment. And then 2, I think another great thing about the connection between Callaway and Topgolf is Topgolf has directors of instructions and coaches across the country. And so that's another thing we advertise on the site is now you have your clubs, go to Topgolf and get a lesson. What a great way to start off your career in golf and your journey in golf with the basics that you need. I think that's something where people fall into the trap of, I'll figure it out myself. And then their grip gets off, their stance and their aim get off. And then it's really hard to come back from that when you don't have the basic foundation of the sport. Beyond that, something else I always say, and I'm going to particularly talk to women right now, is that I think that there's a fear in potentially looking dumb, right? Showing up to a tee time that you booked, you might be paired with 3 random guys, and now you're terrified and you really don't want to keep up with the sport. So I think there's a couple things there. The invitation aspect of golf. I think it's always more comfortable when someone invites you to the Topgolf, to their Top Tracer range, to a par 3 course, to their favorite 18-hole course. So you have someone to coach you through, where do I check in? How do I get the range balls? Where's the first tee? Beyond that, realizing that there are a lot of bad golfers out there, right? That's what makes it fun. That's what's addicting about golf, is that it's just the most challenging sport in the world. So I always tell my girlfriends, go sit at your local range for 5 minutes and realize everyone's struggling. And it'll just take that fear out of it. And then beyond that, look for local leagues. Topgolf has leagues. Your local courses most likely have leagues. I think that's a great way just to consistently get out on the course. That can be a little bit less intimidating maybe than always having to book your own tee time, can get expensive, right? So it's always, I think to me, it's about building your golf community and having the right equipment.
So Jenn, let's take that a step further, because more and more women are getting into the game of golf. I do believe that you're exactly right, that intimidation factor does keep women from wanting to go out there. They have a fear that they are going to get laughed at, or people are going to frown upon them or scowl at them and that sort of thing. And that's an awful thing. Women's Golf Day is a wonderful thing. Probably should happen more than just once a year, but I love that that is bringing more females into the game. But when you do send people out to a driving range and they're sitting there and they are looking at other people struggle to play well, what do they report back to you? What are they saying to you? Like, hey, Jenn, you know what? You're right. Hey, there are people out there struggling just like I am. Hey, there are a lot of people just learning just like I am. What kind of comments do you hear back from people that you send out there? What are they saying to you?
For sure. And to your point, women's golf is 100% on the rise. I think in 2023, there was a record high of 7 million women that were on course. But to this exact point, how do we keep them? How do we keep that number growing? And then they become lifelong golfers. That's exactly right. They realize that everyone's going to whiff once in a while. Maybe I shouldn't say everybody, because of course, like my parents, there are people out there that are incredible golfers. But on average, though, there are tons of people out there who are still struggling and learning, but they're okay with potentially not looking the part, right? And so I definitely get that feedback that they feel more comfortable now. But I will say there is still a part of them that does want to still be prepared, even if they know they're going to play terribly. They want to know what to wear. What do I need to bring to the course? Like I mentioned before, where do I get my range balls, right? There is still that prepared factor to golf, I think, and that builds on this barriers to entry. But at least once you realize that the other golfers are probably more focused on themselves than you. And the other thing I say is just don't be slow. As long as you aren't slow, no one in your group's really going to care what's happening with your game. They're focused on themselves, right? So if you get to double par, just pick it up and move to the next hole, and everyone will be happy.
Jenn, one of the other things we talk a lot about on this show, and including in the first segment tonight with Tom Patry, is getting properly fit for your clubs. You mentioned the quiz that you take people through in order to find a good set of clubs for them. At what point in time do you feel like it's now time, once we've got them into whether it's into Topgolf or on the driving range and that sort of thing, once we've got them in there, we've got them introduced, when is the right time to go out and get properly fit for the clubs that they're going to use?
Great question. So I do think that when it comes to a complete set, which is you're getting all your golf clubs and your head covers and your bag in one purchase, right? So mostly for beginners. And I'm also talking to all the golfers out there who are sick of being the go-to when their friends want to get into golf and you have to tell them what to buy. Send them this site and this will tell you, right? No fitting needed. If you do want to get fit for these clubs as well, you can go to your local Topgolf. We do fittings there as well, including for the complete set. So if you want to make sure it's the right height for you or it's the right model, absolutely go to your local Topgolf. But for the most part, you can buy a complete set online. And then I think also once you get to a certain point in your golf career, you still may want to get fit, but you kind of know your specs at that point, right? I know I play stiff shafts. I know I play a 10.5 degree driver, right? You kind of know what you're looking for at that point, and maybe you're just upgrading your technology. I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? Between, okay, I fell in love with this game. I've gone through my first or second set of clubs and I'm ready for the big leagues, right? I'm ready for the AI smoke driver. Okay, what do I need to get? That's normally where I tell people to get fit. Again, I'm an advocate of getting fit at any point in your journey, but I really think it's that transition from I'm no longer a beginner. I'm really into this game. I want to take my game to the next level, play my local 18-hole course and feel confident. That's when I would mostly tell people to get fit. And again, Topgolf does fittings for all Callaway clubs, so that's a great place to check out.
Jenn, just a couple more before I let you go. And here we are in early November. We're starting to look ahead to 2025. We got the PGA Merchandise Show in January, but 2025 to me is just going to be a fantastic year for the game of golf. What are you looking forward to as we look ahead to the end of 24 and into the early parts of 25?
Absolutely. Well, to speak about Topgolf Shop specifically, and then golf more broadly, I'm really excited throughout the rest of this year on Topgolf Shop. We have a bunch of other products launching. Earlier on in this conversation, I mentioned the 4 main categories: clubs, balls, gloves, and tees to get on the course. But we're launching a bunch more product through the end of this year. We have a really fun holiday themed golf ball dropping. We have an exclusive set that we're launching that you can only find on Topgolf Shop. That's actually the Maverick brand, which is a well-known brand in the Callaway world. It's great technology and it's a great price for being such high quality product for a complete set. So we have some really exciting products launching throughout 2024. 2025, I'm excited for golf as a whole. I think, like we've mentioned already, these numbers are growing and growing. The number of people on course for the first time, 22 million people are interested in getting on course for the first time, but haven't, right, in the past. So there's this huge wave of people that are still excited about the game. We have 3.5 million juniors on course. There's just tons of growth and energy behind the game. But I also think specifically there's a lot of energy around women's sports, right? I think that we're going to start seeing more and more household names among the LPGA, the Nelly Cordas, the Rosangs of the world, really, inspiring more young women to get into the game. And then Ryder Cup. I mean, New York Ryder Cup. I can't wait. That's what I'm really excited for.
Indeed. Jenn, before I let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're out there doing, whether they're following you online on topgolfshop or over social media?
Absolutely. Yes. Check out topgolf.shop. Sign up for our newsletter. Like I mentioned, we have tons of product coming out in the next few weeks. We also, right now, on that Maverick set I mentioned, are running a deal, $100 off and 2 free dozen golf balls when you buy that set. It's a great purchase, whether it's for your friend, your partner, or for yourself. Can't recommend it enough. And we'll also have a women's version of the set coming out soon. And follow Topgolf, follow Callaway Golf on Instagram. If you're interested in reaching out to me, or if you have ideas for the site, I will happily take them. Any suggestions, any way to grow the game and get more beginners in the game, you can reach me at jennifer.whaley@callawaygolf.com. Would love to hear from you and how we keep growing the game and get more beginners out there.
Jenn, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. You're fantastic, my friend. I hope this is the first of many visits that you'll come and do here, because I really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit. And now tapping into your knowledge about what's going on around the game of golf. I'd love to have you back on the show again sometime.
I would love that, Chris, anytime. And let me tell you, if you ever want my sister, my mom on as a three combo, my dad too, we are a riot. So you let me know. We'll get the whole family on here.
Wow, that would be awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do that. So thank you for that offer. We'll do it sometime soon.
Thanks so much, Chris, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Take care, Jenn. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
You too.
Thanks. That is the great Jenn Whaley, folks. Boy, is she fantastic or what? I can't blame Topgolf and Callaway Brands for having her as chief of staff. Well, you want somebody with that kind of energy and enthusiasm around your organization at all times, and the things that she is doing to help beginners stay in the game. Again, that stat that we talked about just a little bit ago. Only 1 in 4 players that start out as a beginner stay in our game. That's a terrible stat, right? We got to get to 2, 3, 4 out of 4 that stay in the game. So why? She talked about women being maybe a little bit intimidated, beginners maybe being a little bit intimidated. One of the things that's great about Topgolf is the fact that it's a more relaxed environment. And I know most of you have gone out there and you've been at least once to a Topgolf. And it's a fun way to get introduced to the game. And that's a great way to go from beginners and into going out on the golf course. I think it's a great way to steward more people into the game that way. And it takes a little bit of that pressure off, right? Because the first time, like I'll just speak for myself. When you first learn the game, it is very different. It's like I say, it takes 10 years just to get bad at it. But when you go out to the driving range and things of that nature, you get a little bit intimidated. You're not playing that well. You get out on the golf course, you mentioned slow play. All of those things come into as a factor. And those are things that are self-taught. But when you go out to Topgolf and you have some fun, you hit some good shots, you get some targets, you have fun that way, you see the social aspect of the game, I think it takes a little bit of that pressure off, and it keeps more people energized and wanting to go out and play the game. That's why I think this is fantastic. Topgolf.shop. Again, doing great stuff to get beginners to stay as a part of our game. And when you have somebody like Jenn Whaley behind it and her energy and enthusiasm, I think that number is going to go from 1 out of 4 to 2 to 3 out of 4 very, very soon. Kudos to her for what she's doing. I look forward to having her back on the show again soon. Coming up next is going to be former Michigan State, Atlanta Falcons, and Pittsburgh Steelers tight end Mitch Lyons. Before I bring Mitch into the show, before Keith joins me, let's talk about our friends over at Squares Golf. And folks, do you sway and you're off balance in your golf swing? You know what? It could be your shoes. A golf shoe needs structure to provide stability and reduce sway. How can you tell if your shoes lack structure and are hurting your game? If you can hold your shoes by the toe and heel and twist it, toss it. Squares was designed for the perfect balance of structure and comfort. Isn't it time you tried Squares? Try the new Speedbolt at squares.com. That's SQAIRZ.com. Okay, now next on the tee with me is Mitch Lyons. Let me give you a little background on Mitch. He is from Grand Rapids, Michigan, played his college football at Michigan State, where he lettered from 1989 to 1992. He was a 6th-round draft pick by the Atlanta Falcons in 93 and played in the NFL from 93 until 1999 with the Falcons and the Steelers. Following his playing career, he's been in the financial business. He owns his own company now, Mitch Lyons Wealth, up in Rockford, Michigan. And I couldn't be more excited. I get to spend some time with him this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Mitch, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
So, Mitch, I want to kind of go back to the early days, if you will, being from Grand Rapids and playing your high school football there at Forest Hills Northern, right there in your hometown. Was Michigan State, was that always going to be the place you wanted to play your college football, or were Michigan and some of the other schools around the state or maybe around the Big Ten also knocking on the door?
Well, it's kind of funny. I always kind of bled a little bit of green, but we had some maize and blue in the house too. My mom and my brother tended to root for the Wolverines. My dad and I kind of were Spartan fans, but back then it was kind of hard to be a Spartan football fan, short of the 1978 season. I remember Kirk Gibson being a pretty profound receiver, and so I kind of latched onto that. And then obviously when Magic Johnson won the basketball title in '79, that gave me a reason to jump on there too. But so I always kind of dreamt of being a Spartan, but to be honest with you, as I was getting recruited, I had a visit to Michigan. Sat on the couch with Bo Schembechler alone in his office. He asked me what I got in the ACT. I told him I got a 27 coach, and he puts his arm around me and he looks at me, says, "Son, you owe it to yourself to be a Michigan man." And I came out of there thinking I was going to be a Michigan man. My dad took me from that office to Detroit Metro Airport to step on an airplane for the first time in my life. Flew out to Colorado, met Bill McCartney, saw the mountains for the first time, and I left there thinking I was going to be a Colorado Buffalo. And I come back on a Tuesday afternoon from there to play my basketball game, and just so happens my Michigan State recruiter just happens to be sitting at my gate as I step off the plane and asked me how my visits went. So at that point, I said, geez, maybe I better rethink this a little bit. And then ultimately, I decided and stuck with Michigan State and committed to them.
And Mitch, like we were talking before the show, I'm from Pittsburgh, huge Steelers fan, and this show is hosted on the Pittsburgh Tribune review site at TribLive.com on the sports section. And we'll get into your Steelers stories and things of that nature in just a little bit. But your head coach at Michigan State was a guy Steelers fans will remember, and George Perlis. He was the D-line coach, then the D coordinator and assistant head coach from 72 to 82 under Chuck Noll. But what was it like playing for George Perlis?
Well, I love George, and when I was getting recruited, he had Michigan State on kind of the 5-year plan. He talked about a 5-year plan when he came to Michigan State, and then my senior year of high school was his 5th year at Michigan State. He leads them to the Rose Bowl, makes good on his 5-year plan of getting him to the Rose Bowl and winning it over USC. So that was a pretty good season to recruit me on. So I loved Coach, and it didn't start off so well. My first season there, we were 0-4-1. So I was thinking I was going to ride the coattails of Andre Rison and Tony Mandarich to another Rose Bowl, and it didn't work out quite that way. But George is great, and the thing about him is he was a Steeler through and through. I mean, he talked about the Steelers all the time. All of our bowl rings were patterned after the Super Bowl rings of the '70s, which was kind of neat. And I learned so much, and I remember him missing practice one day to go back for Art Rooney's funeral, as a matter of fact, and I remember that pretty vividly, and I know how much he meant to Coach, and it was pretty cool to be able to ultimately, which we'll get talking to when I came to Pittsburgh. It was kind of neat to kind of complete that circle a little bit and go to a place that I'd heard a lot about.
When I look back over your college career, it looked like you played a lot of special teams your first couple of seasons there. 16 catches your junior year, 36 your senior year. Talk about becoming more and more a part of the team's offense your junior and senior seasons.
Well, you know what? It was just kind of some things happened that I won't give you the long answer, but just some things happened where I got behind a guy due to some injuries and some suspensions. Not my suspension, but the way things happened, I was a third tight end. I sprained my ankle in a practice the same night. The second tight end has some legal trouble, and all of a sudden the fourth tight end, who was behind me, jumps up to second that week, plays pretty well, and proceeds to stay ahead of me for the next year and a half. And we had a guy that was starting named Dwayne Young, who went on to play a long time in the NFL. So I just kind of got behind the 8 ball, and I just didn't really get an opportunity. And finally, 3 games into my junior year, Coach Perlis decided to give me the start, and and I kind of took the bull by the horns and made it count. And it's kind of funny because nowadays kids would have probably transferred 3 times by the time I played, in my 4th year. So,
Right.
it was about having some fortitude and belief in myself to hang in there and keep swinging. And I remember coach walking over to me one day, towards the end of my junior year and kind of had that smirk on his face. And he said, "How'd you get so good?" And I said, "Well, I finally got a chance, coach." And he kind of just chuckled. But I'll tell you, it was after that year, I was working out, in the off season. And I remember coach walking down the hall as I was leaving, and he just chatted with me and he said, you keep playing like you're doing and you're going to have a chance to play on Sundays. And that's when the dream of making the NFL really became real to me, because I know he'd been there. I knew he'd been there. I knew he knew what it took. And for him to tell me that really lit the flame that, okay, man, I can make this happen. So that was a pretty cool moment that resonates in my mind to this day.
When I was looking at some of your game stats, I'll go back to your senior year, October 10th, 1992. You guys are playing Michigan. They ranked third at the time. It wasn't a great day for the team, but you had 12 receptions for 119 yards in that game. Do you remember that day?
Oh, I remember that day. Yeah, that was more footballs than I think probably any tight end seen in two games combined in Michigan State history, probably, honestly. It was just the kind of the circumstances, the kind of defense they were taking, or they were playing, and they were giving up a lot of underneath stuff. And the funny thing about it is Jimmy Miller was my quarterback, who Steeler fans I remember playing for the Steelers. And Jimmy was a year behind me, and he's the quarterback. And I actually had 16 balls thrown to me that day. Two of them got called back on penalty, so I actually had 14 catches. Two of them got called back. One he threw at my feet, and one I just dropped. So 16 balls was incredible. And yeah, so that was at the time I think it still is a tight end record. I think wide receivers maybe caught 14 now. But yeah, that was a fun game as far as being involved in the offense and having some activity for sure. But yeah, we came out on the wrong end of that one. But but personally, it was a good game and a good memory.
A couple of years before that, in 1990, you guys went up to the Big House and beat Michigan 28-27 in front of 106,000 fans. Michigan was ranked number 1 at the time. They ended up scoring a touchdown with 6 seconds left and elect to go for 2 and the win. Then the ball goes in and out of the hands of Desmond Howard. What an amazing win that had to be. Do you remember, were you a part of that game?
Yeah, played special teams in that game, but yeah, that was an amazing game, and just the Michigan fans remember it as Desmond Howard getting tripped. Michigan State fans remember it as Eddie Brown making a great play on the 2-point conversion, and so depending on which side of the ledger you're on, that's how you see that one. But it was a fantastic college football game, back and forth, and that was a fun bus ride home as we drove the hour back from Ann Arbor to East Lansing, and maybe a little more fun once we got back too.
It was. Heading into the 93 draft, what were people telling you about your potential, where you might be drafted, and which teams were potentially interested in drafting you?
Yeah, well, I'd heard, late rounds. I mean, I wasn't expecting to be a day one guy or anything like that, but I actually sprained my knee my last year, or last game of our season. We needed to beat Illinois to make a bowl game. We lost to them in the last drive, but I'd sprained my knee, my MCL, so it was kind of a 6-week injury, and so I wasn't even really back running. And I get a call as a late add to the Senior Bowl, right? And I jump at the chance. I'm not 100% confident in my knee at that point, but I said, yeah, this is an opportunity I don't want to miss. So I fly down there. And very first practice, it was raining cats and dogs, so they actually had us practicing in a basketball arena. And we get done with warm-ups, and first thing we do is go right to backers on tight ends, and as far as run blocking against outside backers. And I'm going against Darren Smith, my very, very first rep, who he went on to be drafted by the Cowboys and won a couple Super Bowls with him. But I remember coming, not 100% on my knee, not sure if I was all the way there, and coming off, had a pretty good block on him. And I remember turning around, and I see Jerry Glanville sitting in the first row of the basketball seats. He's got his cowboy hat on and his big belt buckle and his sunglasses. And, I said, all right, well, I look pretty good on that one. So fast forward, they end up drafting me. But, I go back to, every little play matters, right? And I think back and I was like, okay, I came out with some physicality on that play, and that might have been just enough to pique his interest. And ultimately they ended up taking me. But, I was thinking anywhere from the 5th to the 7th round. And the Vikings had interest. And they had Brian Billick was the tight end coach at the time, who later went on to be the Ravens coach and win a Super Bowl. But he said, geez, we'd like to take you in the 5th. If we don't have a 6th round pick, so we'll take you in the 7th. So they didn't take me in the 5th, and then Atlanta ended up taking me in the 6th. So I often wonder what might have happened there, just because the Vikings defense or offense was a little more suited to my game than the Falcons.
You mentioned Jerry Glanville. It had to be a culture shock for you, I would imagine, going from George Perlis to Jerry Glanville. What was that like?
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, George ran a very tight ship. Jerry, not so much. I always say we had a lot of characters and maybe not enough character on that team. But we had the Andre Risons and the Deion Sanders. Deion was gone the first 5 games because he was playing baseball, and we started off 0-5. Now Jerry was fun during camp. Camp was miserable. It was 35 straight days of over 90 temperatures. We wore pads every practice, morning and afternoon. It was a miserable camp and the worst of my career. And uh, the thing about it is we started off 0-5, so I never really saw the completely fun side of Jerry until Deion came back. We won 6 to 7 games, and it became very fun. Jerry was a guy, when you were winning, I don't think he's probably a guy you could have more fun with. Made everything a party, and it was a lot of fun. And we had 3 more games left against the 3 worst records in the NFL, and if we won them all, we controlled our own destiny and made the playoffs. We lost every one of them, and Jerry got fired. So that was the end of that. But he was culture shock is saying it lightly when it comes to the difference between George Perlis and Jerry.
You had a lot of talent on that Falcons roster. When I look back at all the guys on it, Chris Miller's a wonderful friend of this show. He was one of the quarterbacks on that roster, along with Bobby Hebert. Mike Pritchard, another great friend who's been on this show many times. You also had Eric Dickerson. You mentioned Andre Rison, Michael Haynes, Drew Hill. So much offensive talent. What went wrong, do you think?
Man, there's such a fine line between winning and losing in the NFL, right? I mean, and we see it every Sunday, right? You see some of these teams that get upset by other, maybe what appear to be lesser talented teams. But I always say, hey, every team's got NFL players, right? And on any given Sunday, a play here, a play there. Cower always used to say, guys, this game's going to come down to 4 or 5 plays, and I wish I could tell you which 4 or 5 they're going to be, but I can't. So you got to play every one like it's the one, right? So I mean, it can be this. It can be the difference between a receiver not bothering to block 10 yards downfield, so it turns a 7-yard. It turns what might have been a 40-yard run into a 7-yard run because he doesn't block his cornerback, or it's just, there's so many. It's the ultimate team game, right? And 10 guys can just kick butt and have a great play, but if one guy misses his assignment or just gets beat, it could be a game changer. So I'd like we just had. I mean, you mentioned Eric Dickerson. I mean, he was at the tail end of his career. We brought him in, kind of for a few games. He wasn't even there very long, but but yeah, we did have some talent. We had the run and shoot offense. A lot of people would and that's kind of why they drafted me. Was Jerry wanted to start using the tight end set a little bit more. So I was the only tight end on the roster, which was great. And I played a fair amount my rookie year, but then. When we didn't get it done, had it going for a while, but then when we fizzled at the end and lost those games, then June Jones took over and he was a pure run and shoot guy, but, liked me, trusted me enough to keep me on the roster for when he did want to use the tight end, but the upside wasn't real high with June at the helm.
Yeah, you mentioned him coming in, Glanville. So Perlis to Glanville to Jones just seems like such a big gap in what those guys wanted to do and how they wanted to run the offense. Was it hard for you to learn all these different offenses in such a short period of time because they were so drastically different?
Well, it wasn't that hard because there weren't that many tight end plays in Atlanta. So, I wish I had all the same plays that the run and shoot had, but, there was only so many plays they had with the tight end offense. So, and I was always, fairly sharp guy. I didn't stay in the NFL as long as I did because I was a great athlete. I did it because I, knew my job, knew my role, knew what to do, and, was accountable and responsible for what I needed to be, and I worked hard and I played hard, played to the whistle, and playing to the whistle is really what kept me in the league, because once June he got fired after his 3rd year, really what Pittsburgh had seen on film, a little bit of film I had in Atlanta, that's what attracted him, was the fact that I played hard, played to the whistle, and that's what they were looking for, because it was a little different offense in Pittsburgh, as you know. It was ground and pound and hand it to the bus 25 times a game, and we're gonna smash you in the mouth, and that was what I was used to at Michigan State, right? I mean, that's what we did. We banged and pounded down the field, and that's what attracted me to Pittsburgh.
You scored your first NFL touchdown in '96 in a game against the Saints in New Orleans, a 3-yard pass from Bobby Hebert. How excited were you to finally get in the end zone?
Yeah, it was fun, and Bobby was a great guy, and it's kind of a funny piece of trivia because Bobby's a legend in New Orleans, right? And I was just actually down there last week. I was doing a 2.5 day physical that NFL puts on there at Tulane for you, gives you a really good once over. And I actually had dinner with Bobby down there when I was there with my wife Angela, and we spent a couple hours with him. But I always say people down there, if I told them that, hey, my one NFL touchdown was in the Superdome and I caught it from Bobby Aber, you'd probably think I played for the Saints, but I didn't. I actually played for the Falcons, and Bobby just happened to be playing for the Falcons too. So it was cool to catch it. To be honest with you, at that point of that season, that was my last year there. I was pretty doggone frustrated, with kind of how things were going, and we weren't winning. We were 3-13. I wasn't playing much. I was frustrated. I wanted to get a fresh start, somewhere and have an opportunity to play. So it probably wasn't as exhilarating as I dreamt it as a kid, to be quite frank. But still, it's a good memory because Bobby was a great teammate, one of my favorite teammates. And it's pretty cool to be able to say he caught a touchdown. A lot of people will chuckle and they'll say, "Oh, you only had one touchdown in the NFL." And I look at them and I say, "How many do you have?" I'm in the top, 0.1% of people on earth that have an NFL touchdown. So I got that going for me.
So you mentioned what the Steelers liked about you on some of the things that they could find on the game film, but how did it come about that you go from Atlanta to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, well, so towards the end of that 96 season, my wife at the time was pregnant with our son, and we found out he had a heart issue. So, in the womb, and he's going to need some open heart surgeries when he was born. So a lot of stress going on then. And then now I'm on the outside. June Jones gets fired. Dan Reeves comes in, brings a couple tight ends from New York with him. So I know I'm not getting signed there. Uh, so I'm kind of on the outside looking in. My agent's working, trying to get me some tryouts and whatnot, and there wasn't a lot of knocks on the door, to be honest with you. And Pittsburgh reached out. I came in. I worked out for Mike Mularkey, the tight end coach at the time, who later would be O coordinator and coach three different NFL teams. But Mike, I remember sitting at dinner and I remember him talking about a couple games where he goes, "You know what? I just like what I saw on film. I know you weren't playing much, but when you're in there, you played to the whistle and you always were physical." He goes, "And that's what we're looking for, and that's why I think you can help us." And that's what I wanted to hear. That was music to my ears. Yeah, let's go. Let's pound the ball. And Mark Bruner was a physical tight end, and obviously I prided myself on the same thing. And that's what Mike was looking for. So I'm sure it was probably more Mike than anybody that probably got me to Pittsburgh. And then then I was able to stick and play a few years before my knees gave out.
So now you get another character as a head coach and Bill Cowher. What was it like playing for the Chin?
You know what? I loved it. I loved the whole organization, the Rooney's on down, and it all starts from the top, right? I mean, it's insane that they've had three coaches since 1969. I just had Coach Cowher on my podcast, The Lyons Chair. I had him on last week, and it was great catching up with him. It's been a quarter century since I talked to him, so it was great to spend an hour with him. We actually spent 2 hours because the first recording didn't take, which we didn't find out till after the fact. So he was kind enough to come back on a couple days later and re-record it. So that was fun. But the thing about Bill was he was fair, right? He always said, "Hey, I'm fair. I won't always be equal in treatment of players." But you knew where you stood. There wasn't any ambiguity as to where you stood, what your role was, what was expected of you. And we had a good year in '97, and had a good start in '98, and then we fizzled at the end after the Thanksgiving Day debacle against the Lions, where we lost a coin flip when Jerome called Hales or whatever the heck he called. It wasn't definitive, I know that. But yeah, so but even though those were, and then '99 was, we kind of fizzled that year as well. Had a lot of injuries and stuff, but and I blew my knee out 14th game, and I knew that was the end of the road for me. But I loved the organization. I loved the city. I loved the fans. I mean, I'm in Kansas City Airport today on my way out to Phoenix. Run into two people all decked out in Steelers gear and start talking to them. Got my picture with them because they were all about the Steelers. And it's just that fan base coming from Atlanta, where it was a pretty apathetic fan base because it was a Braves town then. And there wasn't a lot of reason to get fired up about the Falcons. And then coming to Latrobe and having 4,000 or 5,000 people out at practice every day that was culture shock for me. And it was a lot of fun. And I loved my time there. I wish I could have spent my whole career there, to be honest.
You mentioned the Rooneys and how things transpire there from the top on down. Could you sense a difference in what the Rooneys do and how they treat the organization and the players? Was that drastically different than what you saw in Atlanta?
Yeah, Mr. Rooney, Dan Rooney was, he was in the locker room after every game, win or lose, right? Shaking hands with everybody, asking if you're all right. I mean, very rarely saw the owner in Atlanta, Rankin Smith. Taylor Smith was pretty much running the team, but same deal. I mean, he was around, but it just was a different feel, right? It just more of a family feel. And I've read a lot of books actually here lately just about the start of the NFL, and obviously Art Senior had a big role in that. It's one of the founding fathers. And it's really a great, interesting history lesson to go back and just to see how the NFL came about, right? And it wasn't always this mega this mega successful branding dynamo. They did it by the bootstraps there for a number of years, and those founding fathers really went all in on it. And it was his baby. And I just remember the stories George Perlis saying, talking about, and when I got to go there as a player. Through the 70s, I was a Steelers fan too, because again, I grew up in Michigan. The Detroit Lions did not give you a whole lot to glob onto as far as excitement and entertainment every fall. So, you were either a Cowboys or a Steelers guy back in the 70s when you were in Michigan. You had to go one or the other, or else you had a really bad life. So I jumped on the Steeler bandwagon. So, all those guys of the 70s were my heroes. And when I got to come back or come to Pittsburgh, and I remember being at a charitable luncheon downtown and sitting at the same table with Franco Harris. I mean, I might as well been a kid on Christmas, right? And that was for me was just the ultimate. And remember Lynn Swan riding the plane home with us one time from Monday Night Football, because he was doing the game, and just was it was crazy that just to be rubbing elbows with all these guys. And then some of the guys that had been there so long. I mean, Dick Hoke, who was a player and then a coach. I mean, he coached with George, and him telling me George stories back, when I was there. Oh, George, yeah, telling the crazy stuff from the 70s. It was just a lot of fun to kind of complete that circle and hear the George stories from the other side.
When you got to practice and were there with the Steelers, what was it like lining on the opposite side of guys like Greg Lloyd and Jason Gilden every day?
Yeah, they were great players, and geez, Greg, he wasn't the most personable guy, but he was a little surly. And I remember my first training camp there. Keep in mind this is pre-cell phone days, really, right? And I I remember sitting at and he was kind of, I wasn't real tight with him anyway, and he was a fearsome force out on the field. And I remember sitting in the cafeteria out in Latrobe, and I'm sitting at the table next to him, and I keep hearing him talk to himself. And I'm like, man, what's going on with this guy? This guy's like hearing things or talking to people or something, and I don't know what he's doing. It turns out he's got like some sort of earpiece that I wasn't. He was talking to somebody somehow, some way. I don't even remember there being cell phones back then, but he had some kind of contraption that I probably didn't have because I couldn't afford it yet. But he had an earpiece in and he was talking, and I thought he was just being crazy, but it turns out he just had better technology than me. But he was a fantastic athlete. I mean, guys like Levon Kirkland. I mean, I used to have a lot of fun trying to beat like Levon down the middle, the little out and up. And anytime I did, it didn't happen often, but when it did, I always let him know it because he was big as a house. He could run like a deer. He could run with running backs, but when he got beat by a 5 flat 40 guy, it didn't sit well with him. So I let him know it when it happened. There was some great talent though, and Jason Gilden. It was good to see him get in the Steelers. The
Hall of
Steelers,
Honor.
yeah, Ring of Honor, and that was cool. So happy for him.
You and Courtney Hawkins played together at Michigan State. Then again in Pittsburgh, you were together. What was it like getting reunited with him on the same roster?
Yeah, that was cool. Courtney and I came into Michigan State the same year together. He didn't redshirt, so he left a year earlier when he got drafted by Tampa Bay. But yeah, he was a consummate pro, right? I mean, he played the right way. I mean, he just went about his business, just a true pro. And the cool thing about it, he's back at Michigan State now, and he's coaching receivers, and he's had a number of really talented kids. He's got a couple under his wing right now that he is a real asset for those young players to learn how to play the game, how to go about your business, how to practice, how to keep in shape, take care of your body. So Hawk's a good guy, always was, always has been, and will continue to be.
You mentioned briefly a moment ago about the 97 season ended in heartbreak for all of us in Steelers Nation. I'm sure for you guys too, with that home loss to the Broncos in the AFC Championship game. What was it like for you guys getting back into the locker room and after that game was over, knowing how close you guys were to get into a Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's tough, man, and especially the way that game went down. If you remember, I mean, we were kind of down, and we kind of were rallying. We had the momentum, the crowd's going nuts, and we had to get a stop, and I think it was like 3rd and 6, And if we get that stop, I don't think there's any doubt that we thought we were going to come down and win the game. And yeah, I think Elway hits Shannon Sharp for the first down, and ball game over. And yeah, that's just gut wrenching to be that close, right? I know Pittsburgh had been to the Super Bowl a couple years earlier and didn't complete the deal, but for me, I had never been that close. So to get that close and not make it was it was tough. And then unfortunately, never got that close again
You
for me.
mentioned the Lions a minute ago, and not a lot of success there in Detroit. I saw your post on social media yesterday wearing a Lions jacket. You back rooting for the home team?
Yeah, I grew up a Lions fan, so now having said that, it wasn't like I jumped right back on them after I got done with the Steelers. I still root for the Steelers, but the fact is all my kids are, they grew up kind of as Lions fans, and I didn't jump back on the bandwagon because for so many years there wasn't really a reason to waste 3 hours on a Sunday because they just weren't that entertaining. But I really, this Dan Campbell, when he got hired, even in the year they weren't winning games, that first year they were 3-13, but you could see the difference, right? You could see they were building something, and then the next year, they start off 0-8, and then they finish or 0-7, whatever it was, and end up finishing 9-8, first winning season in a while. And it's just been a progression, and it's been fun to watch. I love. He kind of reminds me. I told Coach Cowher, he kind of reminds me of him a little bit, just in how he relates to the players, and they respect and love him, and you could just see it. And Dan, I don't know if you saw the Fox interview yesterday, just how much he loves what he's doing, right? And he got teary-eyed talking about it yesterday on the interview. But just a lot of passion, and for the state of Michigan, I hope they can get. I think they have enough to get it done this year. Losing Hutchinson hurt, but this state will just erupt if this team makes it to the Super Bowl and wins the title.
Yeah. Do you think that they got a legitimate shot? I thought they did coming into the season, and when Hutchinson went down, I thought, ooh, that may
Well,
be
yeah,
the
I think,
difference.
yeah, if you've watched them though, geez, man, they haven't missed a beat. I mean, I'm sure they're probably going to try to add a pass rusher here before the trade deadline still, but they just have so many weapons on offense. I think they have the best line in the game right now, offensive line. Defense is playing pretty doggone good. I mean, they gave up 2 field goals and a kind of meaningless touchdown at the end of the Packers yesterday. And they just seem to find a way. Everyone's kind of raised. You're not going to replace Hutchinson with one player. Everybody's got to just up their play. Their secondary is young, but showing signs of improving every week. Kirby Joseph seems like he gets an interception every week and takes it to the house yesterday for a nice pick six right before half. But is it tougher without Hutch? For sure, but not impossible. And I think they're the team to beat in the NFC for sure. And you still got to get, you got to get through most likely the Chiefs again, because any team with Patrick Mahomes on it is probably going to be the favorite. But there'll be some battles. I mean, I think the Steelers are playing good ball too. I mean, I mean that defense on any given day, that defense can win a game on its own.
Mitch, this is the golf show, so I got to get some golf stories from you. You mentioned you're down in Arizona currently with the Schwab Cup Pro Am. Talk about being down there and what you're looking forward to being a part of that event.
Yeah, well, I got invited, so I said, yeah, absolutely, I'll come down and play. Now, having said that, I'm coming off an injury, so I haven't played in quite a while. I tore a pec muscle slipping off my boat this summer in July, so that has hindered me. And I come to find out, I've got a couple shoulder muscles that are partially torn too. So I don't know how well I'm going to be able to swing, but I'm going to slap on the Bengay and I pop a couple ibuprofen and do what I can and slog through it. But I'm looking forward to playing the course, Phoenix Country Club, and it's it's always good to get out of the colder weather. Although Michigan's had some really nice weather this fall, but get down here in the sunshine and play, and then probably just as importantly and just as fun to go out and watch them actually play on Thursday in the first round and watch them do their thing as the Champions Tour. They're a little older, but they're still pretty good golfers. So I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to
they
watching
are.
that.
Michigan's got a lot of great golf as well. I think it's one of the most underrated states for how many great golf courses you guys have up there. What are some of your favorite places to play back
Yes,
home?
so many great courses, and for those listeners that haven't been up, and there's a lot of good courses throughout the state, but that northwestern part of the Lower Peninsula is just amazing. You get up to Traverse City, a lot of great courses up there. But my favorite course in Michigan is Arcadia Bluffs on the shores of Lake Michigan. It's just a fantastic place, and just if you catch it on a nice day, you're not always going to catch it on a nice day. I've been pretty fortunate. Every time I've ever played, it's been sunny. I've heard the horror stories of the wind whipping off the lake and all that on a nasty day, but I don't think there's a better, prettier course in the state than that. And playing year round, and then sitting up on the Adirondack chairs up above the 18th green, you got a panoramic view of the whole back nine down below you. With the effectively Lake Michigan, but it might as well be the ocean because it's not like you're seeing the other side of the lake. It's just it's a beautiful place and a great place to have dinner as well with that same view.
Mitch, the NFL Alumni Association chapters across the country do such a wonderful job doing a lot of charity golf events that benefit kids, which is absolutely outstanding. We've been aligned with them over on our football show Thursday Night Tailgate for many years. Kudos to those guys for all they do for their local communities. I'm sure you've also had an opportunity to go out and play in a lot of pro-ams across the country and for different companies and events and things of that nature. Who are some of your favorite players to go out there and play with, and what are some of your favorite events that you have an opportunity to go play each year?
I haven't not been that involved with that primarily because I'm not in an NFL city, so it's not quite as easy. But now that my kids, I'm empty nesting into this year. Our youngest daughter's off playing basketball at Ferris State, Division II school here in Michigan. So this was going to be the big year. I fully intended to start playing a lot more golf, and then I had this injury. So I guess it's going to have to be next year. Seems like it's always next year, but yeah, so I've got a buddy that I played with in Atlanta, Robbie Tobeck. He played 7 years in Atlanta and then 7 up in Seattle. But I'm looking forward to getting down this winter playing some golf with him. He's a guy I stay in touch with, and enjoy playing there. But yeah, those NFL events. Now that I'm on the other side of raising kids, I will plug in. And honestly, in the wintertime, man, I got to get out of Michigan. This cold weather, I don't like the Michigan winters as much as I maybe did as a younger man. So our daughter Grace will play on Thursday, Saturdays. I'm already planning some Sunday morning flights to go out and play a few days and then come back on a Wednesday or Thursday for her next game. So it's definitely on the docket.
Yeah, so let's take that a step further. You're speaking about your daughter Grace. You mentioned she's starting her college basketball career up there at Ferris State. Give a shout out to her.
Yeah, no, we're super proud of her. She played for a great high school program at Rockford High School, just north of Grand Rapids. They actually went to 3 straight Final Fours. They won it her junior year. She hit the game-winning three-pointer to win that, and then they got beat by the same team the next. They played the same team all 3 years, West Bloomfield, and they got us last year. They hit a miracle three-pointer to tie it at regulation, a bank shot, not intended, and then beat us in overtime, unfortunately. But we're proud of her, and she's off to Ferris, where they actually made a Final Four last year in the women's Division II Final Four. So that was cool, and hopefully they can keep it going and keep her personal streak going. And my company, Mitch Lyons Wealth, we just did an NIL deal with the whole team up there. So they're putting on a weekly production for us, kind of a sitcom that I think people will have a lot of fun following. They had their first episode last week with the introduction of the team. So stay tuned on that. You can follow me on social media for that, and we'll keep you abreast on that. It should be a fun effort. It's the only one of its kind. We're not aware of any other Division II program with a full team deal in NIL at the Division II level. So we're proud to be part of that and to do that at Ferris State.
Yeah, so give our folks details on that. Talk about what you're doing now, about your wealth company, and then your podcast that you mentioned a little while ago as well.
Yeah, sure. So, I started Mitch Lyons Wealth. I've been in the industry, financial and the retirement planning industry since I got out of football after I blew out my second knee with the Steelers in '99. Started up in middle of 2000. And then 2019 began my own company, Mitch Lyons Wealth. And really, we're all about just helping people retire comfortably and confidently, protecting what they've built. We're really working with folks that are, approaching or in retirement. Where the game changes, we call it the retirement red zone. But when you get in that, what I loosely define as the retirement red zone is the 5 years before or after you retire, right? That's kind of a critical time in determining the success of your retirement. Because if you catch the market at a bad time, I use what I call the lost decade, 2000 to 2009, when the S&P's annualized return for that 10-year period was -1. That's not a real good return, and that was not factoring in taxes or advisor fees. So, if that happened for the people that happened to that retired in 1999, they were, unretiring in a hurry or living on a lot less than what they'd hoped. So, really, our main goal is to help solidify an income plan for people that the checks keep coming, and that even if the market tanks, that they're protected. We can optimize their income, create proportionally more than they can safely take out of traditional stock bond accounts. So that's our focus, making sure the government doesn't get any more than their fair share, um, and just bringing a sense of peace to folks so they can retire. And then, every day's Saturday in retirement. We want them to enjoy their Saturdays. And we can do that without taking on unnecessary risk or paying unnecessary fees.
And talk about your podcast, The Lyons Share.
Yeah, so that's kind of something I've been thinking about the last few years of doing, and finally just started it this year, and it's got off to a great start. I mentioned Coach Cowher was on, had Dermontti Dawson on for you Steeler fans. He was on a few weeks back, so you can go catch us on Spotify or YouTube if you want to watch them. The Lyons Share YouTube page, you can watch the interviews. I had Mike Mularkey on as well, which was a lot of fun. I was down in Florida not too long ago and got to spend some time with Mike, and he's a good friend. He was our tight end coach, but a great guy, and I've kept in touch with him over the years. So had him on. He told a couple funny stories. Folks would probably get a kick out of listening, kind of behind the scenes stories in the NFL. Had my friend Robbie Tobeck on. So it's been fun going back and catching up with folks. And it's not just football though. We will have we talk about family, faith, football, finance, and fun. So really anything under the sun we'll talk about. But being football season, we've kind of had Cornelius Bennett on as well. Just thought of him, but we've had a good slew of some good guests. And it's been fun just to see what are those characteristics that help people succeed. Right, that's kind of the thing I like to uncover with all these folks is what drives them, what drove them to reach the heights they did. Right, it tends to be universal, right? It's a unforgiving spirit, fortitude to just keep going, even though maybe the cards are stacked against you, or you didn't have all the amenities maybe other people had and whatnot. But it's just that I love uncovering that unwavering spirit to succeed, and all those folks have it, and it's pretty cool to be able to rub shoulders with them again.
So, Mitch, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're out there doing, whether it's online or it's over social media?
Yeah, well, the easiest way is you can just go to MitchLyonsWealth.com. You can follow, you can connect to all our socials on there. I'm at the Lyons Share podcast. You can go right to YouTube, and like I said, the Lyons Share page there. You can find us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast there. But really, Mitch Lyons Wealth's the easiest. I wrote a book called Retirement of Steel. Anybody out there that wants to order that, and go to my website, get a complimentary copy for that. Was involved in a retirement documentary called The Retirement Deception, which I was one of the experts featured in that. They can also order a streaming code off the website. So that's really the brain of the operation. They can go there, and then they can check out all our social media followings as well there.
Well, Mitch, it's been great having you as part of the show. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me. I hope this is the first of many visits. You're fantastic, my friend.
Well, I appreciate it. And, I'm going to start working on this golf game. So hopefully I can have a few more insights for the listeners and bring them some success.
Indeed. I hope so too.
Yeah.
Mitch, take care. Good luck. All the best to you and your family. I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chris.
See you, Mitch. That is the great Mitch Lyons. I love talking to Mitch, and I learn so much each and every time I have someone like him on the show, in and around the fact that, look, when you put great stuff out on videotape, people are going to find you. That's the thing that I took away from a lot of this conversation, and I get that in life, right? When you put great things out there, people are going to come to you, and that's what Mitch did, and that's the reward that he reaped. I so enjoyed the time I got to spend with him. So very much looking forward to catching up with him. Hopefully again before too long. Maybe we can get him in early part of 2025 in January as the Steelers are making it deeper and into the playoffs. That's the hope, right? Across both sides. Getting Mitch back on the show and the success that the Steelers hopefully have in the second half of the season. Be sure to check out his podcast. Again, it's called The Lyons Share, and give him a follow online at MitchLyonsWealth.com. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this week's edition of Next on the Tee. I want to send out my sincere thanks again to Tom Patrick, Dr. Bob Winters, Jenn Whaley, and Mitch Lyons for joining me this week. Scheduled to join me next week are Ben Helmrath. He's the VP of Hard Goods over at PGA Tour Superstore. The holiday's coming up, right? So we got to get some great ideas for you to put on your list for Santa. So looking forward to having Ben as part of the show. 1984 Olympic gold medal figure skater and golf addict Scott Hamilton will be back with us, as will my long-lost cousin and the director of golf at the Alpine Country Club in Glen Ridge, New Jersey. John Mascari will be here. Always great fun having Cuz as part of the show. And then we'll round things out with another great holiday gift idea from CEO of Popticals, Gary DeSalvo will be back on the show. So we're going to have a great time next week. I hope you'll come back and be a part of it with us. I want to thank our friends again over at the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review for hosting this show on their site. For coverage of everything going on in Western Pennsylvania, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com, and you can find this show by clicking on the Sports Section tab. The most recent episode is going to be front and center for you there on the homepage of the Sports Section. You can also click on Sports and then Podcast Network. That'll take you to another page. You'll see the Next on the Tee logo. Click on that, and several of the most recent episodes are available for you there as well. You can also find this show available on Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Player.fm. And as always, my thanks to the folks over at Good Pods for making this show one of their recommended podcasts. So please download their free app and stream your favorite podcast right there from your favorite device. But as I say each and every week, most of all, my sincere thanks go out to all of you for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.